Hello everyone, my name is Alex. I'm a 2000 rated over-the-board chess player, and in this series we're going from 1000 to 2000 ELO and chess.com rapid games, where I'll be explaining my thought process as best as I possibly can for your education and entertainment. And we have a Vienna. We will see if my opponent goes knight to f6 and allows the Vienna Gambit, or whether he goes for knight to c6 and we get some other lines with bishop to c4. I had a comment recently that asked, after knight to c6, what do I think of the move f4? I don't think all that much of f4. The problem is, after black takes, well, my opponent does go knight c6. The problem is, and hopefully the commenter who did comment that is watching, you don't have the move e5 to attack the knight, so there's also queen to h4 threatened immediately. So after f4 takes, you kind of have to go knight to f3. And this is just a king's gambit, essentially, which I think is probably an unfavorable version, because I assume you probably want to get your bishop out before your knight on c3. So we still want to play f4 at some point, but we're going to have to delay it a bit. We're going to have to play moves like d3 and set up the move f4 with support from the bishop, most likely. Of course, it depends what my opponent does. And if you want to learn more about many of the different lines in the Vienna, I have a full 1 hour 20-minute video course on the Vienna, which you can find on my channel. And I also have, it must be almost 100 or so videos now, which will be linked in a playlist down below of all of my games in the Vienna. The Vienna Gambit, the Vienna Game, Vienna Gambit Declined, like all of it. So if you want to learn more, there's loads of content on my channel. And I think one of the most popular variations is bishop to c5, in which case you can go queen to g4, and the theory gets very wild there. My opponent goes a6, and I'm not going to lie, I don't think I've ever seen this, and I'm just going to continue with the normal plan. I mean, the only thing a6 does is either preparing b5, in which case I don't care, I'll just drop my bishop back, or a6 is played to give the bishop a hidey hole on a7. However, as I mentioned before, after the move bishop c5 in this position, we have queen to g4. By the way, I didn't say my opponent's name at the start of the video for clear reasons. After bishop c5, I think we can probably still go queen to g4. This just looks like a favourable version. With the critical line queen to f6, knight to d5, queen f2, king d1... Yeah, I think that's actually just a good version for white, because we play d3 in that line anyway. So let's go queen to g4. I don't think I'm missing anything. d5, we can just take on g7. If you take the bishop, we take the rook. That's not a problem. Of course, d5 with a discovered attack on the queen. So yeah, I think we can try to claim that a6 is essentially a waste of time, and I will show you after the video in the analysis what I'm talking about with this bishop to c5, bishop to g4 line. This is also covered in my Vienna course video in pretty extensive depth. Yes, okay, my opponent does go queen to f6. And the thing is, we could try and play knight to f3, and claim that because we have already played the move d3, this is a favourable version for us. And we could definitely do that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with just going for the main line. Normally a6 and d3 wouldn't be on the board, as I said before. But I think that can only benefit us. Knight d5, queen f2, king d1, we're threatening g7. So let's say king to f8, knight to h3 attacking the queen, queen to d4. c3 would just trap the queen. Normally, white has to prepare the queen trap with the move d3 so that the bishop and the pawn on e4 are protected, which gives black a chance to escape. However, we already have the move d3 on the board. This is one of the reasons that understanding your openings is so important rather than just memorizing them. Another difference that d3 causes is the fact that we can actually go bishop to e3 here. If this pawn were back on d2, of course we can't play bishop to e3. So we could block the diagonal if we want. This trade probably benefits us. However, d5 is always on the cards with an attack on my queen, and yes, we could take on d5 with a counter-attack. However, we probably lose a piece at the end of that line. So, I think... Oh, wait. Oh, wait, I'm... Okay, no, that was not a good move. I just realized one of the issues that d3 also causes, I was only speaking about the benefits, is that my bishop no longer defends the f1 square. Now, in the normal lines, if this pawn is back on d2, after queen to f2, king to d1, there is no queen to f1 check because the bishop controls that square. However, here, there is. That I completely missed. And I don't think we're entirely lost here. I think we should... Okay, we're probably worse. The computer may find some way for white to just lose instantly. However, after queen to f1, I do have king to d2. Of course, the pawn not being on d2 allows the move king to d2. It's not a move I want to play, of course, but I don't think I have a choice particularly. However, I think I can probably make a case for trying to run to the queen side like this, which looks a little bit insane. And it'll be really interesting to see after the game what the computer thinks about this line and whether this is viable or not. Okay, my opponent goes pawn d6. I assume I have to take. Of course, my queen is under attack. I could consider the move queen to f3, offering a queen trade. Take, take. Of course, I cover the f1 square if I do that, right? So queen here. I'm still threatening this, and I have ideas of attacking f2. So I think my opponent probably trades. I take back with the knight. I'm a pawn down there. Bishop g4 I can meet with knight to c7. So queen here, take, take. Probably bishop b6, defending the pawn. Of course, I'd like to apply more pressure to f7, but I don't think it really works, and f6 can always be played. So I think I should take on g7. So queen g7. I'm stopping bishop to g4 check. Even if that's played, maybe I can go knight to f3. Don't know, though. But I'm still covering that. Queen g7, what can my opponent play? Knight f6 isn't playable. The knight can't really move, because I'll take the rook with check anyway. So maybe knight to d4? Trying to attack c2? Would make sense. Knight d4 looks like a decent move. I know I can take on c7 in a lot of these lines, but I don't think it really helps me to take there. Let me think. Knight c7, king d8 has to be the move to attack the knight. My queen is under attack, my knight is under attack. There's not really a good way to deal with that. So, no, I can't really play that. If queen g7, knight d4, the c2 pawn is a problem. It is definitely a problem. How do I deal with it? Knight e3? Maybe? That's interesting. Defend c2, also defends g4, also defends g2 and f1. And this knight is blocking the bishop's scope. That's an interesting idea. And it opens up my bishop for counterattacks. I think I should be taking on g7. I mean, if my opponent delivers the check on f1, king to d2, and I think I can escape to the c3 square. My queen maintains control of g2. Perhaps after this check here takes... interesting. But maybe I think I can get away with this. Because I threaten the knight. Queen g2 defends the knight. And attacks the rook. I could take. Queen takes, knight f6 check. King moves, takes. King takes, rook takes g1 check. In that line, I think we go up a pawn? Maybe? That's really complicated. I'm not sure. King f8, f7 is defended. Here, check here. Bishop takes. I mean, that's obviously not the only option. However, I feel like I have to go for this. I'm not really sure what else I can do. Knight d4 is the move I'm expecting from my opponent. Definitely the move I'm expecting. And that has a very clear threat of knight... Sorry, not knight, but queen takes c2. I suppose king to e1, and there's no... Well, no, there's a check here, but I can take it. The knight is blocking the bishop scope of f2, so the queen can't... Like, the bishop can't give a check on f2 after queen to c2 check. You could also make a case for moves like bishop to d2, blocking the queen's vision of the c2 square. And if queen to f1, maybe I can play bishop to e1, just covering up. And the queen, of course, then can't return back. There would be no bishop to f2 applying pressure to the bishop because the knight would be in the way. So, yeah, maybe bishop d2 is more accurate. Again, I always have to be concerned about bishop to g4. I shouldn't completely discard taking on c2 in all lines. There may be times where I can get away with it and maybe set up checkmating threats. For example, if like knight c2, king d8, knight takes a8, queen to f8 is a relatively serious threat because my knight is covering the c7 escape. So the king would have to come to d7. And whether I actually have a way to mate or not, I don't know. But moves like queen to f7 check could force a queen trade with my bishop's protection of f7 as well. And if I win the rook in the corner, I may just be up so much material that it's completely winning. Again, I'm not familiar with this line. I doubt it's ever really been played much, to be honest. And it's very interesting. Because I would be much more confident if this pawn were back on d2 and this pawn were back on a7, simply because there would be no queen to f1 check. The position is still very, very complicated, don't get me wrong, but I know the position there. I know that it's good for white. Here, I don't know. The thing is, with like knowing the evaluation in chess, if I have the evaluation bar here and it tells me that I'm better, then a move like queen takes g7 automatically feels like the right move because I'm like, okay, I'm better, so I must be having to attack here, right? So queen takes g7. If the evaluation bar says something like -1 in this position, my thought is probably, okay, taking here is bad, and I need to trade the queens, and the -1 would be because black is up a pawn, right? And if, you know, in this position it says that black is, like, I don't know, -7, then I probably... No, I probably take, actually, and just hope that I can create complications, because that would imply, if it was -7 here, that queen to f3 loses somehow. As an example, right? Like, I don't know, maybe bishop g4 drags the queen away and the queen comes to f1. Although I think I can calculate well enough to know that that should be okay. But it's just interesting, like, because evaluation, knowing the evaluation is so important. And it makes it so much easier when you're spectating like live games and knowing the evaluation, whereas the players obviously don't know the evaluation. Changes your thought process a lot. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, hopefully you're finding it educational. Please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. And for those of you wondering where the tournament video recaps are, don't worry, they will return. I'm not just like throwing them away. I'm just honestly enjoying doing the speedrun videos right now. So if there's like, if I don't know, a bunch of you were like, yo, where are the tournament videos? I'm waiting on round 6, and I have played actually another tournament recently. Then please let me know in the comments, what on earth is Rook A7? This is either genius or horrific. It's one of the two. Obviously, the point is that the rook doesn't get hit if knight takes c7. But I mean, really? Okay, alright. What are we going to play? Knight to h3 looks tempting, because after bishop takes h3, my rook defends f1. However, I don't think I really like it, because after pawn takes, the queen can give a check on f3 and I lose my knight. Sorry, my rook, because of the fork, because g2 no longer controls the f3 square. I could play knight to f3. That looks pretty good. That looks really good, actually. The point being that the rook defends f1 now. Pretty much it. Also, the queen is disconnected from the f7 square, so I could actually have some really big attacking threats now. Yeah, that looks pretty promising. I could even have tactics like knight to f6 check, and if knight takes, taking the rook, for example. I probably wouldn't do that because the king goes to e7. Although maybe I can take the bishop there and take advantage of the fact the rook isn't on a8. I don't know. Knight f3 looks pretty good. I don't think black has a good move there. If knight to d4, I probably just take it. Or even knight d4, knight c7. Maybe. King d8. Obviously, queen c2 is threatened, though. I'm trying to find a way to like take on f7 and mate the king, but I don't think there is a way. So, knight f3, knight d4, take, bishop takes. c3 even looks good. And as long as bishop g4 can't be played, which it can't, that should be fine. It should be fine. Is there anything else? Well, knight to f3, does it threaten this? Because there's no bishop g4 check. Knight f3... I don't know if the queen can take on g2 in those lines, though. I'm not sure. It feels like the right move, though. Feels like the right move. Let's play it. Knight f3. I really hope I'm not missing anything, but this is a very complicated position, and I'm completely out of book. Well, I was out of book a while ago. After move 3, really, I tried to apply the same principles. I don't know if my opponent slipped up, and he was better somehow. Maybe giving the queen check on f1, he should have done sooner. And gone for the bishop takes g1 line, but it does look a bit scary. I don't know, knight c7, queen takes h8, all those moves look pretty daunting. Okay, my opponent does go for knight to d4. Alright, I think I probably have to take this, but let's consider other moves. For example, knight to f6 check is an interesting move. If the king goes to d8, we have mate on f8. So knight f6, queen f7, king d8, queen f6 check, king d7. The king could try and run to c6. What else? Knight f6, queen h8 check. King d7. I can't take here. I don't think. What if I just take here? If queen c2, king e1, is there actually a threat? There might be, with like knight f3, pawn f3, bishop to f2. Of course, knight to f3 comes with check. King f1. Although I suppose queen d1 I can just take on f2. Knight f6, knight f6. What about bishop f7? If king here, check, king d7. I don't have a check on e8 because the knight controls that square, though. Queen takes. He can still take on c2. Feels a bit uncomfortable. Also, if I take here, maybe there's bishop g4? I don't know. Very complicated. Very complicated. Again, I could take here. But then knight to f6 ideas don't really work because the queen can always take. Bishop d2 ideas don't really work anymore because my opponent takes on f3 and that's not good. I think I should be playing this. This feels like the right move to me. I think even if my opponent gets to play queen c2, Oh, wait, no, he'd have mate on e2. He would have mate on e2. So I do have to be pretty careful. Also, oh, queen e2 immediately is mate. Huh. Okay, that's true. I didn't really consider that. So if I'm going to attack, everything has to come with check. Okay. Let's see. To be fair, maybe I should have taken. Maybe. I'm not sure, though. Okay. Well, my opponent, I think he should take here. I think he should. And then what do we do? If I take the rook, the king goes to d7. I could take on d4, but I'm oh no, the bishop can't come to g4 because the king blocks it in. So I can take on d4, and then there's no checks. Bishop takes. Of course, I can't take the knight because the queen now defends the knight because my knight on f3 has moved. So that's true. Okay, what else? If knight to f7, sorry, knight takes f6, I could take on f7. The king has to go to d8. I can take on f6. The king has to go to d7. Then I could take on d4. No, I couldn't, because then my queen hangs. Oof. Here. Is there any mate? I can't get away with bishop g5 as much as I'd love to play it because I get mated on c2 and then e2 or e2 then c2. So, okay, does bishop takes help? I don't think so. If king d7, I have bishop c6 discovered check, and then I can take the rook with check. That should be winning. However, bishop takes king d8. I can take on f6 with check. King d7. Oh, wait. Knight e5. Discovered attack on the queen. Oh, wait. That's really strong. Wait, could I just do it like this? Here, takes. Yeah, I could. Oh. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I don't have to take the knight. Well, that changes everything. Then I take here with check. This has been an absolutely wild game. Absolutely wild. To be fair, there is even bishop g4 at the end of some of those lines. Although with the king on d7, actually, I suppose not. Even after I take the queen, I mean. But that should be fine. Yeah, okay, the king comes up. We deliver the check. I think. I don't see anything else. If we give a check here, the king runs. Check here, the king runs. I don't have it a follow-up. So knight takes e5 check. Discovered attack on the queen. The knight is in the way. The knight also can't move in a way that checks my king, which would allow him to pick the queen back up. That's really important. That's really important. Furthermore, in a lot of lines, my queen can probably return to f7 with check if there are dangerous discovered attacks. If knight c2, my queen can take. If knight b3, with an attack on my queen, defending the bishop and attacking my rook, which would be an interesting move, I probably just have queen to f7 check, delivering the check first and then taking the knight. So that would be okay. Wow, that was exhausting. I have a feeling a lot of you guys are watching. If you're watching a bit mindlessly, then okay, probably not. But if you're trying to calculate along with me and evaluate the position, probably exhausting. And yeah, rook to f8 was the move I didn't want to see. However, there's no bishop g4, so that should be okay. Queen h4? What am I up right now? I have a queen and 2 pawns for a knight. Okay, I'm up a lot of material then. Okay. How do I deal with this? Queen here attacks this. Just gets my queen out of the way. Also defends g4, which could be useful. I think I like this move. Because I don't want bishop g4 in the future, because, my king is still weak. There's obviously no rook to f1, because my rook defends that square. And one of the things that's probably... Well, two of the things that are useful in this position is that this bishop can't get out properly, because the king's in the way. Also, my queen cuts off king d8, which could be useful, although I expect the king to go to c6. And the rook on a7 just can't get into the game. It would probably love to go to e8, for example, or double up on the f-file with the other rook. But on a7, it serves no purpose, and it's completely out of the game. So that's really useful for me. Okay, let's see what my opponent does. How do I win this position? Obviously, I'm up a queen, but I still need to convert this. Well, I probably want to play c3 to get rid of this knight, because it is a really strong piece. Okay, my opponent attacks with b5, which makes sense. Probably bishop b3, just stay nice and solid. I could consider this and try and induce the move c6. The move bishop to d5 intended to meet bishop b7 with a trade. However, c6 bishop b3, 1, it allows the king an escape, and 2, opens up the 7th rank for the rook to try and get involved in the game. So maybe I don't want to allow that. I think I prefer bishop b3. This bishop coming to b7 isn't very impressive, because e4 is perfectly well defended. If my opponent plays king to c6, which might be a decent move. I do control g4. I probably play c3. Okay, he does go for this. I don't think the check makes much sense. I don't think so. Although maybe I can go bishop e3 there. I think I like c3. Here, take, rook f2. Rook f2. Oh, I have d4. d4, attacking the bishop, cutting the connection. That works. Okay, let's do this. Again, I just can't allow bishop to g4 right now, because that could complicate matters. But if I can get this knight off the board, maintain my queen's defense of the g4 square, and essentially just try and trade off more pieces. The more pieces that come off, the better. c3 is also useful because it gives my king a bit more breathing room. Maybe it can run to c2 and b1 and get out of the danger. Of course, I also need to just kick the knight away. It may be a smart idea for my opponent to try and retreat the knight to keep it alive. However, there's not really any good retreating squares. E6, maybe? But even then, I don't know, it blocks his bishop, of course. It still might be the best idea to try and keep pieces on the board. I can consider moves like queen to h6, pinning the knight, attacking the rook. Okay, he does take. Let's take back. And yeah, I think rook f7 is the move he wants to play. However, I think d4 ends the game. because his bishop's under attack, his rook is under attack, and the bishop is disconnected from the rook. So if rook f7, d4, if he takes, I can just take, and this pawn can't move in a way that checks my king, therefore my queen is completely safe. Yeah, I think we can do this. And the rook can't move in a way that checks me either. He could maybe try rook to g2 to meet taking with bishop to g4, but just king e1 should be fine. The rook serves little purpose, and this rook is terrible, obviously. I don't think I'm missing anything. I mean, I'm up so much material, I should be fine. You know, even if I were to give my queen away for a rook, I still should be okay, as an example. But yeah, this is fine. I can just give a check. This check looks good. Get my queen out of danger. And then just take on c3, I suppose. I can put my king on c2 and be nice and safe. Yep, king c2. And yeah, I am up so much material. I could even give away my queen in this position. Well, for a piece maybe. Just if it gets rid of any danger. This rook can't really move because I'll take on a6 with the queen, so that's fine. Bishop a3 looks pretty nice. Trying to offer a bishop trade. I could also get this rook into the game. Rook d1 actually looks quite nice. Yeah, I'm going to play rook d1 because I will welcome this trade. I'm up so much material at this point that if I can get rid of the danger, then I don't care about giving up an exchange. That's completely meaningless in the like big picture of this game, you know? I just need to secure a win. So trading, you know, the bishop for the rook is brilliant. Like take, I can play king e2, bishop e3 to try and get this bishop off the board, for example. I can play c4 to try and break apart the king's defense. Okay, that's a move, but I mean, we'll take on a6. The king goes to b8. And I think I like this move, which for some reason I didn't clock that it was checkmated initially, but I was more concerned about taking the rook. But of course it's checkmate. And that's interesting, because the game review said that I made no mistakes there. Maybe what I did was actually correct, but because I haven't seen it before, I just couldn't know for sure. This is going to be a very interesting game review, because this is a line I've never seen in the Vienna Gambit. Sorry, not the Vienna Gambit, the Vienna game. So let's jump into the analysis. Okay, so this is going to be a very interesting analysis. a6 is a move I've never seen before, and I don't think it gets played very often whatsoever, because it's a strange move. I think the point was, but I think my opponent was concerned about like some knight to a4 thing, going after the bishop, and wanted the a7 square to retreat to. Here, black can just retreat the bishop to e7, and I really don't have much better than returning the knight to c3, so this isn't really a viable line, although it's an interesting idea from my opponent. I go d3 though, which is good, but after bishop to c5, I could play pawn f4. However, the computer likes queen g4. It does like it. And after queen to f6, try and find the best move here for the white pieces. Now, my reasoning was that I can't just play a lazy move, because I was concerned about the d-pawn moving with tempo on my queen. Initially, I was concerned about d5, because if knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, knight takes, I'm down a piece. However, there is one move here that is good for white. Try and find it. I don't think I would have found this from a distance. It's queen g3. And after dc4, knight d5, the point is that the queen is hit. We're attacking c7. And the queen can't move in a way that defends both g7 and c7. That's very convoluted. I mean, a very cool line, but not one I think I would have found. Other than that, queen g3 is the best move. And this is an idea in a lot of these Vienna lines. Knight d5 is still a threat against the queen, so knight g to e7 should probably be played. I also thought queen g6 looked very natural for black, but again the computer says knight d5 and thinks that white is better, essentially claiming that a6 was a waste of time, but rd3 was very much a good use of time. And the best move here is king d8, and you can tell that of course white is better, if, you know, maybe only a slightly better, but after like knight e2, taking here doesn't really make sense because we open up our rook, f4 is probably on the way. White has a very nice position, c3 maybe. I think that this is very comfortable. I win knight d5 though, and after queen f2, king d1, apparently queen f1 check is the best move, and after king d2, black should play queen back to f2. Now, this loses if I try to run this way because my bishop gets trapped. However, I can just dance between d1 and d2. Maybe I can get away with knight e2, but it does feel a little bit tender because this knight is not very well defended. Whoa, I did not mean to do that. Wait, let me just fix that. Okay, that was an accident. I do have rook e1, but yeah, this is a bit strict. Knight e6. Okay, wow. Alright, well, my opponent went d6. And here, queen g7 is the only move, really, to try and stay in the game. Again, black can go for this, and if he gives the check here, now knight e2 is apparently winning, because after knight d4, rook e1, now there is no knight e6 because my queen has already taken on g7. Very strange stuff. After queen takes g7 though, black has to give this check, and after king d2, knight to d4 stops knight e2 because he controls that square. And here after c3, queen f2, king d1, if you give a check here, then I'm good because my knight defends the e2 square, and I'm actually winning here because black doesn't have a good follow-up. So I think he just has to keep giving me checks like this, and I of course can't escape to the c2 square, and I also can't block with knight e2 here because I will lose the game. But I'm sure even if this line gets played, is there anything else white can do? Yeah, there's knight to e3. Although this is the same thing. Oh wait, no, there's no queen to f1 now. Yeah, so the game goes on if I go knight e3, which was an idea that I was considering. Of course, this is an issue, this is an issue. The only move here is queen f6. Queen f6, knight f6. Material is equal, c3, and this is a game. This is a game. I think white has more control of the center. Good light squared control. Of course, the white king can't castle, but we're going to be safe on c2 anyway. The open f-file maybe we can use to our advantage. However, my opponent played rook to f7, and as I said during the game, this is either genius or losing. It's losing. And the best move is knight to f3. Now, how did I arrive at the move knight to f3? Well, queen f1 is a move I don't really want to allow. So knight f3 helps in stopping queen to f1. Knight f3 is also a very good move because it disconnects the queen from not only f7 but also f6, allowing us to go for our knight to f6 tactics later on and ensuring that f7 is difficult to defend. A third reason why knight to f3 is good is because knight to d4 we have the option to take if we want. Also, it stops bishop g4 from coming with check if our queen would take on h8, for example. We get a lot of benefits by playing knight to f3. So to me, it was the only move that really made sense. The computer likes a whole array of moves here. It even suggests d4 and bishop to d3, and it basically says, yeah, the rook's hanging, so unlucky, which is pretty funny. Also, the bishop now defends f1, so queen f2, there is no threat of queen to f1, but even here the computer prefers knight to f3, overtaking the rook immediately. So I think knight f3 was a really good move. I'm really happy with that, and hopefully it makes sense as to why I played it. Knight d4, my opponent comes forward, and these are some serious threats. I need to find the best move, and now. I have base... I mean, there's a few moves that win here. The computer even says knight c7? Okay, yeah, the point is to take on d4. Part of me wanted to take on d4 to just get rid of the danger immediately. And I thought, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. After bishop takes... I didn't want to take here because bishop g4 is mate, of course. Computer wants bishop d2. And the computer can say this is completely winning, but there's still a lot of skill that's involved in trying to convert this position, and I don't have that much time on the clock. I thought that knight to f6 was a much cleaner approach, especially once I'd realised that if the king steps on d7 and my queen is on the f-file, then I always have knight to e5 check winning the queen. That's what made me go for this line. Knight f6. And here, I initially considered queen takes h8, but after king e7, I'm completely lost. I'm completely lost. I have to take the knight to stop queen e2 and queen c2. But there's bishop g4, and I have no good way of defending. If here, I mean, black could take, but even better is this. And the game is basically over. My queen has to stop this. So... I have to take on f7. Taking with the bishop or the queen is both fine. I decided to take with the queen because it's simply easier to calculate. Black only has one move. It makes it an easy calculation. Queen f6, black has two moves. Either he goes to e8, and I actually just have mate in 2. Right? So black only has one option. I went for queen takes f7 because it's completely forcing. It makes the calculation very, very easy. And here, yeah, knight e5 is just clearly the best move. Winning the queen, and now we just have to be careful we don't somehow get mated with some bishop g4 ideas. Although I don't think we'd be at much risk of getting mated, but it's still good to stay as accurate as possible. Queen h4, just keeping an eye on the g4 square. b5. I didn't want to go bishop d5 here, which I basically just didn't want to allow c6 and have to deal with the rook coming to f7. And I know my bishop does control that square, but why give my opponent anything? Maybe he can take my bishop and then go rook to f7. And I've only got like a minute or so on the clock. So bishop b3, king c6, c3. These are not necessarily the most accurate moves, but I don't need to play the most accurate moves. Rook f7, and here d4 pretty much ends the game. Take, 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 I give a check, win the pawn back, bishop g4 check, move the king, rook to a8, and here I like my move rook d1, because I want this trade. Because black is running out of pieces. So my opponent does go rook to f8, which obviously blunders mate in 2. And a very, very interesting game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to learn more about the Vienna game, the Vienna Gambit, basically all the lines, check out the video up here. I do think it's actually a really good course, and I hope you guys find it useful. And if you want to see the previous episodes of the speedrun, check out the playlist down here. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in one of those videos.